You know, when you think about elections, you probably think about casting a ballot. But in the Indian state of Bihar, it's a whole different ballgame. It's more like navigating a labyrinth, really. It's this incredible collision of political power, deep personal history, and just a raw, unfiltered struggle for dominance.
And that line, the one between a normal election and just an all-out war for dominance, well, it's dangerously thin here. And just recently, a single violent event, it just shattered whatever separation was left.
So, we're not just talking about a crime story here. Not at all. This is a raw, unfiltered look right into the soul of Bihar's politics. A place where, you'll see, personal feuds and massive political campaigns are just dangerously intertwined.
So why could one murder derail an entire election? Well, to get that, you have to understand the system it comes from. And it's a system where political power and, let's just say, physical muscle, they're often the exact same thing.
Okay, so this is a word you're going to hear a lot, and it is absolutely central to how things work here. A Bahubali, well, they aren't just a politician. Think of them as a parallel system. They're the local authority figure who commands loyalty through a mix of fear and favor. You know, they really thrive where the state is weak, stepping in to provide their own brand of justice, their own support network. And this is where it gets really personal. The murder immediately puts two of the region's most powerful Bahubalis right up against each other. So on one side, you've got the accused, Anant Singh. He's got this self-styled Robin Hood thing going on. And on the other, the accuser, Suraj Bahan Singh, whose wife just so happens to be the rival candidate in the election. And look at their party affiliations. This isn't just a local feud. It's a perfect mirror of the entire state's political war. And let's be clear, this is not just about personal ego. No way. This is a high-stakes fight to control the local economy. We're talking about who gets the big-money government contracts, who controls the illegal but very profitable sand mining on the riverbeds. See, that economic control, it creates a whole system of patronage. And that, in turn, guarantees votes. It's exactly why these strongmen are so indispensable to the major political parties.
But here's the thing. These local power struggles, they don't just happen in a vacuum. They're all playing out on a much, much larger stage. A stage that for the last 3 decades has been absolutely dominated by the rivalry of just two men, Lalu and Nitish.
This quote, it's pretty cynical, right? It was the reaction from journalists back in 1995, a time when pretty much everyone had written off Lalu Yadav. But then he pulled off this massive, totally unexpected victory. And it didn't just cement his legend, it completely redefined politics in Bihar for years to come. I mean, the relationship between these two, it's been this incredible dance of bitter rivalry and, political convenience. After Lalu's huge win in '95, his rival, Nitish Kumar, basically vowed to figure out his political gene and beat him. It took him 10 years, but in 2005, he actually did it. But then, and this is a wild twist, they joined forces in 2015 to take down a common enemy. This whole back-and-forth saga has literally defined an entire generation of politics here.
And here's what's so crucial to understand. They represent two completely different ways of getting and holding on to power. You've got Lalu, who built his entire brand on just raw charisma, on giving a voice to the poor and the oppressed. And then you have Nitish. His approach, totally different. It was all built on the promise of good governance and this really meticulous, calculated strategy of social engineering to carve out new, loyal voting blocks for himself.
But that old guard, that decades-long rivalry, it's now being challenged by a whole new generation. And they're trying to shift the entire conversation away from identity politics and towards something much more tangible: jobs.
And this number was a total game changer in the last election. Tejashwi Yadav, who's Lalu's son, promised 1 million government jobs. That single promise, it just electrified young voters. It cut across traditional caste lines in a way nobody had really seen before. So he saw just how powerful that jobs agenda was, right? And this time, he's taking it to a whole new level. The promise has grown so big, so astronomical, that it's now the single central pillar of his entire campaign. Now, it's a really powerful, attention-grabbing promise, for sure, but it immediately runs headfirst into a very serious question. A question his opponents are absolutely hammering him on. Where's the money going to come from? The hard reality of economics. And his critics are very quick to point out the math. The estimated annual cost of making this promise a reality, it would be more than 3 times the entire state budget of Bihar. Let that sink in. It's a number so huge that even his most passionate supporters have to kind of take a step back and think about it.
And just to make things even more complicated, there's a third force in the mix, a real wild card. The political strategist Prashant Kishor. He's now a leader himself. And his whole campaign is aimed directly at the exact same disillusioned youth that Tejashwi is trying to win over. Now, nobody really expects him to win, but he could absolutely play the spoiler, disrupting that traditional two-way fight in dozens of key areas.
So, okay, you've got all these competing forces, right? The old rivalries, the big new promises, the wild cards. So who ultimately decides how this all plays out? Well, as always, it comes down to the voter. At the end of the day, this election is all about coalition math. It's about who can cobble together a winning team from these key groups. You've got the RJD's core base. That's the Yadav and Muslim voters. Then you have the NDA's traditional upper caste supporters. And then you have the crucial swing votes, the EBCs, the extremely backward castes, the youth who are just hungry for jobs, and maybe, just maybe, the most important group of all, women. A group that Nitish Kumar has spent 2 decades cultivating as his loyal, caste-neutral base.
This quote right here, it was captured from women voters when they were asked about Tejashwi's huge promises, and it just brilliantly illustrates the deep, personal loyalty that Nitish Kumar has built. The sentiment is that even if they haven't personally gotten specific benefits, the goodwill is still there. This is his firewall. This is what he hopes will hold up against any wave of anti-incumbency or grand new promises.
So that really is the central question, isn't it? Will the old loyalties, the old politics of identity hold firm one more time? Or will the promise of a new future, one that's being championed by a new generation, finally be enough to tip the scales? The answer, as always, rests with millions of voters, all trying to find their way through that incredible labyrinth.